very big difference to an awful lot of town halls, because I get the feeling that the Labour Party is having a lot of problems leading up to the election, when I hear lots of places they keep re-advertising for candidates in what were previously seen as safe Labour seats. Something clearly isn't very popular with what the government is doing. I can't imagine what it is, but I'll explore some ideas with you in a moment. But it is, what I want to talk about is the strength of communities coming together to support people during adversity. And so when, for example, the Liverpool dockers strike took place, there was huge support for it. There was support for it everywhere. And it was that sense of coming together that made a very big difference. It made a very big difference, not just to that dispute, but to the politics of the city and indeed the politics of the whole country. There's something about Liverpool that does bring people together, for good social causes, for good social justice, and in total opposition to racism in any form. So make sure you totally defeat reform next year in every one of the elections. Then ask yourselves, Zara and myself have done an awful lot of these rallies around the country, and they're fascinating for the numbers of people that attend, for the range of ideas that are there, the thirst for something different, the thirst for something democratic, the thirst for some change. And I ask myself, what brings people together? It's a disgust that in the fifth richest country in the world, there is so much poverty. So many children living in poverty, 1 million people using food banks regularly in order to try and survive. Homeless people begging outside stations all over the country, just trying to get enough money together to pay for one night in a shelter. In this country, the fifth richest in the world, that should simply not be happening. Can't we quite simply say, and then you look at a taxation system that has not happened just in the last 6 months or a year. It happened through the Tory government, it happened through the coalition government, and some bit started under New Labour as well. And that is the tax inequality that is there. You pay the highest rate of tax if you're the lowest earner. You pay the lowest rate of tax if you're the richest person in the country. Something has to change. And we don't need I can see some people in this hall that would be old enough to remember the late great Joan Maynard, who was one of the Sheffield MPs. And the first day I was elected to Parliament, she sat me down, poured a cup of tea and said, "Jeremy, listen to this." "Yes, Jeremy, of course." But she was a bit like that. You didn't argue with Joan. She was like a left-wing version of Bessie Braddock. You didn't argue with her. And so she said, "Jeremy, when a minister gets up at the dispatch box and say, there's going to be some hard choices and hard decisions made by the government, that means the working class are losing out. That's what they mean by hard decisions. The easy decisions are when they make it easy for the wealthiest within our society." So we do need a sense of bravery in what is done. And when I was in Parliament not so long ago, Zara was there as well, I thought I was hearing things when I heard the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions saying that there had to be savings made on the DWP budget because of the needs of the security of the country to increase defence expenditure. So they proposed to take £5 billion away from personal independence payments for people with disabilities who need those payments in order to provide themselves with a meal, go to the bathroom, simple basic things where they need support to be looked after to achieve it. They tried to take it all away. Well done, all those people with disabilities, disability action groups that campaigned against it and stopped it at that point. But, and this is a very big but, the issue has not gone away. The government is still reviewing what they call the costs of the personal independence payments budget. And the Tories, the Dems and others keep on saying the welfare budget is out of control. No, it's not. What's What's out of control is the growth of poverty and inequality within our society. What we need instead of a civil service-led review into the costs of disability and the costs of disability benefits, what I would rather see is a commission made up entirely of people with disabilities and entirely representing those organisations to examine the levels of poverty and inequality that are in those communities. And as a start, when we get set up only a month's time as a party, I think it would be an ideal thing if we use our supporters and members to set up such a commission, give that report, give that statement, and make those proposals, which will mean that our policy proposals are rooted in the reality is required. Now, Lucy, Zara, and others have all mentioned the issues facing the National Health Service. And like everyone in this room, I'm sure, I totally support the NHS, the National Health Service, free at the point of use for everybody. It's a fundamental socialist principle, one we all stand by, and we should always stand by it. The same applies, of course, to education and other issues. But the NHS has always been in the crosshairs of the most greedy in our society, who want to either take over the running of it, take over supplies to it, take over contracts to it, or run parts of it. And the Health and Social Care Act that went through with the coalition government was there in order to atomise and send out to contract an awful lot of other services. The previous government, the new Labour government led by Blair, brought in private finance initiative to pay for the building of new hospitals, and it all sounded great. You borrow the money, you build a new hospital, and somehow or other, miraculously, it doesn't cost you anything. Except it costs you the stupidity of buying something on a credit card. And 15% of all hospital expenditure in this country goes on still paying interest on private finance initiative contracts within the NHS. Think what every hospital could do with another 15% money to be spent on patient care rather than feeding the banks and insurance companies that have made so much out of PFI. And when the NHS is so busy buying into places in private hospitals to treat NHS patients because they want to get the waiting list down, one level people say, oh great, good, I'm getting an operation, good, I'm glad you are. But if the NHS does not have the capacity to treat the patients it's got, and there is a private sector that does have the capacity, something tells me that in a democratic society, you would simply take over that private sector and put it in the NHS. Then you look at the issues of people stuck in hospital, particularly older people, but not exclusively, who don't leave hospital because the social care package is not available. And everybody knows somebody that is either in receipt of inadequate social care or desperately worried about what will happen to them if they need social care and the costs of it. The government keeps saying it's too expensive to bring in a new social care system. And so the first thing this government did was kick the can down the road for yet another 5 years. That's 15 years of kicking the can down the road on reforming social care. Yes, it would cost to bring in a comprehensive social care system of the type that I would like, which would be comprehensive social care for all those who need it, which would be paid for, like the NHS, through general taxation, i.e. the right to access social care. Now when I say it's very expensive, I agree. Who bears the cost at the moment? Partly local government, when they can afford it, and it's usually the biggest bill for every local authority, to some extent the NHS, but to a massive extent it's the poorest families all over the country where somebody nearly always a woman, has to give up work, give up job, give up career in order to care for somebody in desperate need. I say, as a community, as a nation, we should be paying for social care, not thrust the bill of it on the people that can least afford it. Now, I, like all of you, love the idea that we have free education within our society, of course. It's crucial, it's vital, it's essential in every way. But it's being eaten away at both ends of the scale. Preschool education is largely not free. Many have to pay for nurseries, many have to pay for childminding and all the other issues that go with it. Primary and secondary, yes, is free, but increasingly secondary and university education, tertiary rather, and university education is incredibly expensive. And that's why I was very proud to put into the 2017 and 2019 Labour manifestos an end to university tuition fees and a restoration of the maintenance grant for students. Well, all you're doing is subsidising middle-class students going to university. I said, you obviously haven't read the manifesto or read what the proposals are. I want every student to be able to make a genuine choice whether to apply for uni, go to uni, get a degree or not, but not based on their ability to pay, not based on their ability to stand with a £70,000 or £80,000 debt when they come out of university. And it's not as if it's a gift to them. If somebody studies at university and they become a great engineer, they become a great teacher, they become a great administrator, they become a great doctor, whatever, we all benefit from an educated society. We all benefit. Mainly teachers, talking about the stresses that teachers go through the way Ofsted operates, and talking about the stresses that school students go through, both at primary and at secondary school level. The stress of Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 testing. Come on, guys, let's just end it and allow teacher assessments instead. With league tables. Now, I love the Premier League table, I love it all the time, particularly this week. It looks fantastic for an Arsenal supporter. Sorry about that. I knew I'd lose the audience somewhere. There you go. But if we judge all of education on the basis of league tables, judging all on the basis of competition between schools, it's great for those students that do really well. It's really great for them. But what we're doing is dismissing the life chances and opportunities for so many 13, 14 and 15-year-olds by putting them into a stream situation, by not allowing them to apply to all the GCSEs they might want to. And we then lose them from the possibilities of what they could contribute to and achieve within our society. I want to see education much more teacher-led, pupil-focused, but above all, let's develop and encourage the creativity and the ability of our students, not just in maths and science, but in music, in art and culture. The way in which school funding is so badly run at the present time. Schools often don't have the after-school clubs and facilities they used to have. And you all know that key period when teenagers come out of school, probably before the parents, guardians, the rest of the family have come home. That hour, hour and a half when they come out of school can be a great time, it can be a wonderful time, it can be a creative time. But where I represent, where many of you live or come from, you all know what the dangers are of kids getting into bad things, bad company, drugs or whatever else because of the temptations that are there. We need positive, useful things for young people to be able to do when they come out of school, not just be forgotten or thrown into only commercial opportunities. So that's why I was very keen in both our manifestos to put forward the concept of a national education service which would give democratic control over education, reinstate the power of local education authorities, and take away the power of the market in the academies, the power of the market in the colleges, and the power of the market to so destroy the virtues of universities by turning into playthings of the arms trade when they should be there investigating and investing in more productive things. Our party, your party, is going to be for all of those things, I hope. And also, I hope we will understand that there are limits to what humans can do to this planet. We cannot go on pouring pollutants into the sky, increasing levels of CO2, destroying biodiversity without there being a price that we all have to pay. Therefore, instead of walking away from the environmental agenda, I want us to walk towards that environmental agenda and say we will support net zero by 2030, and we will also not threaten people's jobs in this. We will actually encourage protection of jobs in what are polluting industries while those industries convert into something more useful. When we were doing the Green New Deal agenda, Becky Long Bailey and I did a lot of Green New Deal meetings around the country. Some of them were absolutely fascinating. You pull together a couple of hundred people from all sorts of different walks of life, divide them up so they don't know each other, because that way they're forced to talk to each other and express their points of view rather than chatting about personal business between each other, and talk about how they could make their town, their city, cleaner, greener, more efficient, and better hope for the future. Absolutely fascinating. The ideas that are there, what the bus driver said, what the train driver said, what the street cleaners said, what the small businessman said, and so on. Again, your party, big, local, community-based, we can be the ones, in reality, driving an environmental agenda in every town, every city, and every village in this country. We will be the creative heart of what happens within our communities. That's why we want this vast new party, yourparty.uk, to be active everywhere in the country, whatever the current political complexion of those communities and those societies. As one who's got a great deal of experience of dealing with the media in this country, and what a wonderful media industry we have in this country, it's just sometimes they don't always look for the right story. And I'm sure it's just a lack of diligence in some way. But it always seems to me slightly surprising that every single utterance, every single movement, every single cough taken by Nigel Farage requires to be reported in real time on every one of our live television broadcasts. The wall-to-wall coverage of the negativity of Reform UK, the sheer stupidity of some of the things they say, the deep ignorance that they demonstrate towards so many communities is never ever challenged by our media. But anyone on the left, oh God, it's very different then, isn't it? Always attacking trade union leaders, always attacking politicians of the left, always attacking those on strike without ever giving the other side of the story. So, what I want to see is a more democratic media, a more accessible media, and a right of reply in every one of our media platforms when attacks are made on individuals. And so, when Farage and others routinely use the most disgusting and disgraceful language against refugees and asylum seekers, and report those people demonstrating outside asylum hotels like it's a perfectly normal and reasonable thing to do, I look at it a slightly different way. I have been to Calais on a number of occasions. I've spent a lot of time talking to people in Calais. They're poor. They're sometimes mentally confused. They're all desperate, and they're all trying to survive. I met people there that worked for the British Army in Afghanistan, and when the Taliban took over, they suddenly had no friends. Certainly not amongst the British Army that they'd once worked for, certainly not amongst the new government, certainly not amongst the warlords. They were just victims of global politics and the global war. So they went to try and find somewhere safe to live. So it's very easy to denigrate the different. It's very easy to denigrate those people that are totally up against it. But let's think of it another way. Different world, different time, different society. Any one of us could be a refugee. In 100 years' time, books will be written, novels will be written about the heroism of those that escaped from appalling human rights abuses, wars, environmental disasters, and so much else, made their home somewhere else, and made a great contribution to that society. So can't we, instead of this denigration of people trying to survive, do two things. One is treat them like human beings with humanity, and secondly, look at the causes of war. The wars we have been involved in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Syria, in Libya, and some of the list goes on and on. It just breaks my heart, the numbers of people that lost their lives trying to cross the Mediterranean, trying to cross the English Channel, and so on. It's not right. And so we have to be brave and be prepared to speak up for humanity. It won't always make you universally popular. Sometimes doing the right thing doesn't make you popular, but in the end, it's still the right thing to do. Desperately hoping, I've just had messages from people there, desperately hoping that there's going to be some kind of ceasefire, and at least that will mean the killing will temporarily stop. But Zara is quite right when she said that the British sale of arms to Israel, the component parts